So I'm going to be showing you how I make collard greens. First thing I do is I buy the collards, wash them up. I usually rinse them in warm water so that, you know, your hands stay nice and warm. And some of these leaves can be quite big. Doing is I'm rinsing them and then I'm placing them on the plastic bag I brought them in, just to get the any extra sand that might be in there from where they were growing, so you don't have a mouthful of dirt or sand in your menu. And of course, the ones that are kind of yellowish, you just want to tear those ends off. You just want the green. So anything that looks brown or not right, make sure you take that off the stem. And I also, before I started this, I did trim just maybe 1/4 of an inch. You don't really have to, it just depends on where you buy your collard greens, how fresh they are. A lot of times you don't have to because it's pretty obvious they just cut them, but if they are tinted brown, you know, on the end, you do want to trim about 1/4 inch of that off your stem. Just makes for a fresher batch. So I probably have about, I don't know, 3 or 4 pounds of collard greens here at 99 cents a pound. It's a very inexpensive meal, and really the most I'll say tedious part of preparation is the cleaning of the collard greens and cutting them up. And we're almost to the cutting part, but not quite yet. I also try and keep the size of my leaves together. So in other words, when I go to cut them, I'm not going to put this leaf with this leaf because they're really not the same size. And just to cut back on the dicing time that you put into this to cut them up, it's best to measure the ones that are about the same size so that you can save time on that. And I'll show you about that. So again, make sure you open the leaf pretty much all the way. These are really good harvest here. I bought these at Krager's, Cuyahoga Falls, and as you can see, pretty fresh, deep green leafy. So that's a big one. I would consider this on the small side. And then, of course, you got your medium-sized leaves, which kind of fall in the middle. This would be like a medium size. So we're almost through this. And as soon as we get there, I'm going to show you how I dice them up. again, they're rather cumbersome to work with if you don't have a lot of counter space, so. But worth it, worth the washing. Here's a teeny one. Okay, so once you get them all washed, we are ready to dice. So what I'll do is show you the dicing process. So here's a big one. So I kind of want to get another big one. I usually do 3 at a time. Here's another big one. So in the dicing, slicing, cutting up, I usually level my stems at the end, and then I'll place 3 cuts. One on the side, one down the middle, and one on the other side. And then what I do, I'm going to roll them. So I roll them into a circle, nice and tight. And then I'm going to take this cylinder of collard greens and cut it in 1-inch strips, really no bigger than 1 inch, because that way they'll be bite-sized after they cook. Otherwise, you'll end up with some quite long and hard to eat bite size. So again, this is 3 of the bigger stems. Cut those up. And the trick is to have your kitchen ready with your extra containers, right? So I shall place these in that bowl. And by the time I'm done, this bowl will be full. So let's just keep going. Trying to grab sizes that are close. These smaller ones, you can maybe do 5 or 6. I usually place them face leaf up. So in other words, there's the back of the leaf and the face of the leaf. And if you place them kind of in one direction, one on top of each other, they're a lot easier to cut. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but yeah, so I'm just continuing to cut cylinder-like collard greens into 1-inch strips. Okay, let's put them here. I'll maybe do 4 of these because they're nice and the same size and they're pretty flat. So they should roll quite nicely. Now you notice I'm wearing gloves. You don't really have to wear gloves, these are just latex gloves. For me, because I'm in and out of the water so much, it kind of protects my hands. But if you feel comfortable, wear the gloves. You don't have to wear the gloves. Trying to get these bigger ones out of the way first. Let's see what we got here. There's another 4. Let's line up those stems. Lay them nice and flat on your cutting board. And we're gonna roll them. One-inch strips. Notice I tried to stick to 1 inch, but I was getting a little too wide. Recipe is really quite simple also. It's only, you know, maybe 5 or 6 ingredients. I'll be using onion and some garlic, carrot, and spices, salt, pepper. Some people like to add different seasonings, parsley flakes, or something to spruce it up a little bit. But not necessary. And then the cook time is 45 minutes to an hour. It just depends on how tender you want the leaves. I generally tend to cook it quite a long time, sometimes 45 minutes. Bring it to a boil, cook for 45 minutes, and then simmer it another 45. But it just depends on your preference. Now what you boil it in is a big pan that holds all this. But you also have your choice of, you can use a chicken broth, you can use a vegetable broth. I'll be using vegetable broth. I have a Better Than Broth paste. That is 1 teaspoon for every cup of water. So probably at least a half a gallon of water. You don't have to, you want to submerge the leaves in the water, but you don't want to have more water than greens, in other words. You don't need to overflow on the liquids, because the idea is that the leaves will absorb the taste of your broth and your onion and your garlic and whatnot. And you will have leftover broth, but more greens than broth. The idea is you can serve this over a noodle, or you can serve it alone. So you don't need to make it more of a soup, because it is more of a vegetable-based menu. It's more of a dinner plate for me, because I am vegetarian, and so I appreciate the greenness. So now we have our collard greens ready to go in our broth. Next, I'm going to cut up an onion. Generally, cut the onion fairly small because I'm not a big onion person, but I do like the taste and I like what it adds to the collard greens dish. So I don't leave my onion sliced large. I like to dice the onion smaller. So here I'll have a half a cup, more like a cup really, maybe 3/4 of a cup, as you can see. And then I'm going to put it in my olive oil. So I'll turn that on, get it going so that it's nice and hot when I add my onion. Don't drop your onion. And so the idea is you want to brown the onion before you add your broth water to your pan. And because I have so many greens, I think I will do a whole onion in this. Again, I'm making it fairly small, diced, cubed onion pieces. Now, as far as garlic, today I'm going to use the rest of my minced garlic that I have. I'm going to not save all this juice though because it's quite strong. But you can also use whole clove garlics. You just have to dice them like I did the onion, peel them, dice them. I mince them, but this, as you can see, is already minced. So I will add the minced garlic, maybe half of that I'll add. So I can hear my oil starting to get pretty hot over here. So I'm gonna turn it way down, see if it's ready. Oh yes, it is ready. Add the onions. Of course, they should go in the pan. And then you can smell that aroma. It smells pretty good. Also going to add, a good clove size of minced garlic. And so what you'll do is you're going to let that brown until your onions are tender and clear light. So in the meantime, what I do is try and clean up as I go along. That should be ready in just a little bit. So as I mentioned, we're going to use the Better Than Broth vegetable broth. That's going too fast, so I'm going to turn it down a little bit. This is my Better Than Bouillon vegetable brand vegetable paste, and it's about 1 teaspoon for every cup of water. So you can either set your water in another pan, which generally I like to do because it seems to blend better. But if I put 4 cups of water in here, at least maybe 6 cups, I'll add a good 6 teaspoons of the Better Than bouillon paste. I'm going to do that in the front here. And then you have to bring it to a boil so that it kind of simmers and dissolves. You don't have to use a broth. You can use just water. Water is fine. I also, now as you notice, I'm only dissolving this into 6 cups. I put more like basically 10 level teaspoons of the broth in here. But what I'll do once I get this simmered and mixed, I will add it to my onion and garlic oil, olive oil in the back here. Then I will add more water. So I will fill up the pan a little bit, add more water, maybe a little less than half full, and then I will probably turn the fire down very low as it marinates with the onion and the garlic. And I will add in my collard green leaves very slowly so that as the pan fills up, it doesn't overflow. But that's basically what we're going to do here. So I can see my onions and garlic are getting pretty, they're getting pretty tender looking. So I will give them a stir also. Don't want them sticking. You don't want them really brown, but you do want them tender and clear. And it looks like this broth is somewhat dissolved. So what I'll do is make sure there's no clumps in it. It's because I'm going to add it to the rest of the bigger pan here. As you can see, there's really no clumps. So then I'm going to add a little more water. I'm going to add water until we can fill up the pan a little bit. I would say a good, 2 or 3 more pans of the little pan here. Add the water to the big pan. Here's 2. Let's get 1 more at least. And then you're going to gently move the leaves down into your broth. Okay, so here we go. Let's give this a stir. You still got the fire going back there. It's on medium. And then you're just going to take the leaves. This is very hot, so be careful. I'm going to add the leaves to your broth. Again, to the pan, not the stove. And just kind of separate them if you need to, because you don't want them to be all wadded up because you had to roll them to dice them, but they're usually free and clear once you get them in the water. And press it down in there just very gently. You'll see that they start to cook already. So it shouldn't be a problem to fit all these in a big pan. Let's add a little more water at this point. This will be our fourth small pan of water to our big pan. So yeah, we've added a gallon of water probably, all in all. And you just want to pour it across the top and add the rest of your collard greens, gently pressing them down. And the finishing touch, you want to bring the top leaf here to almost being submerged. But you have to leave room at the top so that once you get this boiling, you're going to reduce it to a simmer, and you don't want it to boil over. So you don't want the water real close to the top, but you do want your leaves totally submerged. So let's see what we got here. Yes, we do, and they are. So we're going to press them down in there. What I also use is carrots. So I think carrots are great in this dish. So today I have, again, cut to the chase. So I have some already shredded carrots, which are time saving. Or you can buy whole carrots, cut them up, and add them also. Now the trick of this is you don't want to add these right away since they're already so thin and ready to be cooked. So I will place this aside, and then I'm going to put a lid on it, bring it to a boil. And then in good time, I'll add the carrots, give it a nice slow stir, simmer it for 45 minutes or however long you want. It depends on how tender you want the leaf. And basically you're done. Now for on the table, this is a great topping. So I've chosen to use shredded cubed feta. So this will go on a plate and then topped with the feta, salt and pepper, whatever seasonings you prefer. And basically that's it.